They were once celebrated as the golden couple, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, gliding through the world's gaze like modern royalty dipped in Hollywood sheen. They had it all: charm, charisma, smiles that seemed effortless, a carefully curated love story polished for cameras. To many, they symbolized a perfect blend of tradition and reinvention. But that perfect picture is beginning to smudge. Slowly, visibly, and undeniably, the cracks are starting to show. And the moment those cracks became impossible to ignore was not a scandal, a fiery interview, or a controversial deal. It wasn't even a major speech gone awry. It was something small, subtle, a tap, a hesitation, a shift in timing. The kind of blink-and-you'd-miss-it moment that told the world more than polished PR ever could. It happened while Harry was in his element, standing tall at a podium, microphone in hand, delivering one of his impassioned speeches with the calm confidence that earns him respect. Then Meghan appeared. Unannounced. Unscripted. No cue, no introduction. Just there, stepping into frame. She tapped him on the back as if signaling that it was her turn, her moment to take control. But there was a problem. It wasn't her moment. And it wasn't in the script. Harry's body stiffened, his face shifted. His voice, mid-sentence, staggered. There was a pause, sharp but brief, when the fairy tale veneer shattered. The crowd may not have gasped, but millions online did. They're calling it the tap heard around the world. Dramatic, sure. Exaggerated, maybe. But in that second, something raw slipped through. Harry did not hand her the microphone. He did not step aside. Instead, he hesitated. And in the pause that followed, the public saw not a synchronized team, but a struggle. Naturally, the internet ignited. Social media pounced in seconds. Clip after clip spread across TikTok and Twitter. Frame-by-frame breakdowns flooded YouTube reactors. Analysts dissected Harry's facial expressions as if decoding a thriller. Memes exploded. Hot takes burned bright. Was this a power play by Meghan? A misstep by Harry? Insecurity, dominance, dysfunction caught live on stage? Whatever it was, everyone agreed on one thing: it wasn't nothing. It was something. The subtle, unscripted tells often speak louder than rehearsed sound bites. But insiders insist this wasn't an isolated glitch captured by cameras. This was a symptom, a crack months in the making. Beneath the smiles and hand-holding, people close to the Sussexes whisper about friction simmering behind closed doors. The story sounds small on paper: arguments over outfits, disagreements on sound bites during interviews, disputes about which causes to spotlight. But these aren't trivialities for a couple whose brand is built on polish, unity, and control. Small things accumulate. Quibbles become patterns. Silence becomes heavy. For years, Harry embodied the diplomat, willing to let words roll off him, willing to follow structure. Meghan, by contrast, has been the strategist, carefully curating every narrative, every appearance, every message. When those roles aligned, they looked unstoppable. But lately, they seem to clash. Her insistence on final say over campaigns, social posts, photos, and events is reportedly frustrating staff, friends, and even Harry himself. That trademark wide Harry smile? Observers say it is starting to look more forced. And his hesitation on stage wasn't an accident. It was the visible echo of months of tension. For years, he followed her lead through feuds, media battles, even the royal exit dubbed Megxit. He was her fiercest defender, her partner in every fight. But lately insiders say there's been a subtle shift. Harry appears to be holding back, for the first time in their relationship. Watch closely, critics say, and you'll notice it. Harry pauses more often, not just with his words, but with her. When she reaches for the microphone, he now seems to think twice before surrendering the spotlight. That's a monumental departure when you consider the loyalty that defined their initial years. Some friends suggest Harry is trying to rediscover himself, separate from Meghan's orbit. Not rejecting loyalty, but loosening the leash. On Meghan's side, friends say, she wants to lead everything. Every campaign, every public moment, every carefully framed interview. She thrives on momentum, direction, strategy. That has worked for a time, but Harry, it seems, now yearns for space. He craves freedom to assert his own instincts again. For a prince who gave up everything for love, this quiet recalibration may be his way of reclaiming identity. Meghan is still Meghan, ambitious, commanding, forward-looking. Admirers call her sharp and admirable. Critics call it domineering. Either way, that unwavering energy collides with Harry's increasing need to slow down. He no longer wants to be a player in a perfectly staged production. His instincts lean toward authenticity, moments unscripted, connections uncalculated. Observers describe Harry as more off the cuff, raw, emotional. He doesn't want rehearsed sets. He wants candid reality. Meghan, however, thrives in control, polished messaging, and curated environments. That clashing approach, insiders claim, has been the source of countless quiet disagreements. Let's make one thing clear. This isn't about a fading relationship in the sense of broken affection. Friends insist the love remains. They still appear affectionate. They still share private moments of tenderness. But love alone, in the spotlight that never dims, is rarely enough. In a world where every gesture is analyzed, even a second-long hesitation on stage can be painted as marital meltdown. And when one partner wants to script every frame, while the other longs for unscripted humanity, tension creeps in. Slowly, quietly, pressurizing like steam in pipes. Meghan's defenders argue this isn't control, it's protection. She is safeguarding their brand, their message, in an ecosystem where cameras misrepresent and critics roar. But in doubling down, she risks tightening reins around a man who desperately wants to breathe. Harry's friends whisper that he has been reconnecting privately with old friends, old interests, even causes abandon during the storm of their departure from the royal family. There's murmurs of solo projects in the works. Ventures where Meghan is deliberately not on the marquee. Not rebellion, but survival. A reminder to himself of who Harry was before Meghan, before the narrative swallowed him whole. It is telling that critics increasingly call Harry tired, while Meghan is described as guarded. Their once magnetic synchronicity has been replaced by careful coordination. And when fans study their body language, the distance between them at photo ops, the pauses before affection, whispers inevitably grow louder. The conversation around Harry and Meghan did not end with that onstage tap. If anything, the whispers grew louder after the clip went viral. What had been subtle shifts in body language hardened into headlines. Commentators described it as a glimpse of a power struggle. Analysts called it a sign of recalibration. Fans wondered openly whether the once flawlessly synchronized Sussex brand was becoming, for the first time, visibly out of sync. This is not a fairy tale gone sour. It is two very real people trying to steer a shared life under relentless global scrutiny, while each still craves space to lead. Those close to the couple report that the tension bleeds into everyday life. The simplest decisions, from scheduling events to agreeing on which causes to champion, now carry friction. Interviews must be carefully negotiated. Campaigns have to be debated line by line. Even household logistics turn into battlegrounds. Meghan, true to her strategist roots, pushes for absolute consistency and control. She carefully aligns their messaging with a broader vision of what their legacy should be. To her, clarity and curation are essential. Harry, on the other hand, is craving something different, a style that is quieter, instinctive, less calculated. Where Meghan thrives on polished narratives, Harry yearns for something real, something unscripted. The tug of war rarely ends in flames, but in fatigue, as each moment becomes another negotiation between curation and instinct. The weight of performance. Friends of the couple note that what they still share is care and love, but love alone does not inoculate them against a lifetime of public performance. They are constantly being watched, not just by paparazzi, but by millions of social media users dissecting every smile, pause, or missed glance. That makes even mundane disagreements feel magnified. When one partner feels the performance is the priority and the other simply wants peace, it introduces a subtle but dangerous imbalance. Critics say Meghan sees hesitation from Harry as disloyalty, while he interprets her insistence as suffocating. It rarely becomes explosive. Instead, it manifests as awkward silences over dinner, second takes during interviews, or nights when each retreats into separate rooms. Small fractures, but fractures that are noticed. One of the biggest weights between them now is the image they worked tirelessly to build, the progressive and polished couple who broke free from royal tradition to carve their own path. That image has become a brand, and the brand has become a business. With interviews, documentaries, appearances, and partnerships all hanging on perception, every viral clip or misinterpreted expression carries risk. Meghan knows this better than anyone. Insiders say this is why she doubles down on control. To her, every detail, every carefully chosen word or curated social post is not vanity, but protection. The empire they are shaping lives or dies depending on how the world sees them. Yet, in tightening her hold, she risks squeezing out the reality Harry craves. Those close to Harry whisper that he has quietly started reaching beyond the palace they have built together. He is revisiting old friendships, pursuing personal projects, and even considering a return to causes he left behind when royal duty collided with their public exit. These are not gestures of rebellion. They are expressions of survival. A man trying to remember who he was before all this, before every glance became a headline. Critics argue Meghan should give Harry space, step back, and let him speak for himself. Her supporters respond with equal conviction that no woman, and especially one silenced for so long by institutions, should ever shrink for anyone. This is the paradox at the very heart of the discussion. It is not just a marriage in strain, it is two individual paths colliding again and again under hot lights. Harry wants peace, Meghan wants power, and neither of those desires is inherently wrong. The challenge is reconciling them under one roof and under one microscope. The public watches closely, noticing the lack of spontaneity that once defined their appearances. Where once they laughed easily and held hands without hesitation, now there is more caution. Social media threads abound with comments like, "Something feels off." These judgments are not born purely of speculation, they come from subtle cues. The distance in photos, the pauses before gestures of affection, the way their body language betrays calculation. Behind doors, Harry is reportedly setting quiet boundaries. Not grand arguments, but guarded steps. A polite but firm refusal here, a delayed agreement there. Not walking out, but standing taller. Friends suggest this is a new phase, a Harry who no longer automatically follows, a Harry who is testing whether he can steer in small ways. For Meghan, who has always commanded conversations with clarity and confidence, this shift feels unsettling. Observers say when both are in a room, Meghan still energizes, still directs attention, but Harry increasingly measures each step, withholding the eager compliance of their earlier years. Their harmony, once effortless, now looks effortful. Each interaction feels like choreography under strain, a dance performed for cameras where the rhythm no longer comes naturally. For fans, this marks a transformation. For critics, evidence of inevitable rift. For the monarchy's watchers, another chapter in a saga that never stops giving headlines. One complicating truth is that much of this pressure is not internal at all, but global. They are scrutinized not just as individuals or partners, but as symbols. Meghan's assertiveness becomes a narrative of ambition. Harry's hesitancy is painted as submission. Their marriage is constantly refracted through cultural, political, and national lenses that twist interpretations to fit agendas. A quiet moment between them can be weaponized into columns about dominance or dysfunction. This relentless attention never fades, and so the burden is constant. Even in the privacy of their California home, the weight of a world eager to define them for itself hangs heavy. Friends close to Harry describe him returning to therapy, seeking guidance on how to balance his desire to protect Meghan with his need to cultivate autonomy. He does not want to lose her, but he is aware of the risk of losing himself. What began years ago as a clean break from the monarchy now feels like another variation of the same trap, different rules, same stage. The complication is that their business model is inseparable from their relationship. They built an empire of media, content, and messaging on the foundation of an image of unity, resilience, and shared purpose. When that image falters, everything else trembles, from sponsors to subscribers, allies to critics. Everyone involved sees it, and that includes Harry and Meghan. There remain bright moments, reminders of the bond that once captivated the world, glances that still soften, whispers between them that still make them laugh. But those moments are becoming rarer under the weight of tension. When the scales tip too far from tenderness toward careful calculation, questions form. There are those who argue this is just a phase, another wall couples inevitably hit before recalibrating. And maybe that is true. The pressures of fame, family, and public life can strain even the strongest relationships. But others see a deeper shift. They note Harry's tired expression, Meghan's guarded energy, and the noticeable absence of the spark that once carried them so naturally. Their trademark rhythm, once intuitive, now looks studied. Still, both remain present, visible, performing their roles. Meghan presses forward with projects and campaigns. Harry continues to stand beside her, speaking when needed, supporting when asked. Yet the whole tone feels different. Less passion, more performance. Less spontaneity, more strategy. It is a fine line to walk, and one wrong step could undo everything. The reason the world remains fascinated is not just because of who they are, but because of how much they have revealed. Their interviews, documentaries, and behind the scenes glimpses opened what looked like a vulnerable, authentic window into their lives. That intimacy is what drew fans closer. But now that tension is visible, that same openness becomes a weapon. Silence, distance, hesitation, all are noticed, magnified, interpreted. At its core, this is no longer just about one tap on stage. Meghan wants to lead with power. Harry wants to live in peace. Unless those diverging desires bend back toward one another, a collision seems inevitable. For now, the world keeps watching. Because when a golden couple falters, when PR gloss gives way to raw reality, it becomes more than gossip. It becomes a mirror for love, ambition, and the impossible task of being human under lights that never turn off.